All the buttons.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, depending on where you're located. Welcome to Follow Boss Office Hours. My name is Lee Adkins, and I'm hanging out with Janelle Quick today. What's up, Janelle?
Hey, Lee, how are you?
I am good. I'm excited to dig into this office hours with you.
Me too. I am very excited. Yes.
We are going to be talking about Follow Up Boss custom fields today, which may or may not sound exciting to people, but they're actually pretty cool. A lot of cool stuff you can do. Janelle, why don't you tell us, in some sense, like what is a custom field and what we're going to go into detail on what you would use it for, but just maybe at a high level, what do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So custom fields are kind of what they sound like. They're a custom field. It's a way to customize to bring a little bit more of your own information into Follow Up Boss. So this is actually something important to note. It's only accessible to modify or create these from the account owner level. So if you're an admin or an agent and you're kind of poking around, you're like, I've never even seen these before. That's basically why, because only the account owner has access to these. So this might be something after you watch this, if you're an agent or an admin and you're like, hey, I have some ideas, just need to go to your owner and tell them, hey, I have some ideas. Let's get these implemented.
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of these too, because there's so much you can do with them. It's almost it's funny in one sense, it feels like a really simple topic that we could just cover in 10 minutes. In another sense,
Right.
there's a thousand different cool ways you can use them.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do today, too, we'll focus on some core stuff for people who maybe are less familiar and are learning, but we will get into some kind of cool, trickier, more advanced uses of some of these
Yeah.
slightly. But I think if you're good with it, maybe go ahead and share your screen. We can show where they are. You reference obviously that only an owner can create them. Um, and they are global throughout the account. So it's not like smart lists where you can share them with different people potentially. They're global across the entire um, Follow Boss account.
They are. But there are some neat things we can do, like hide them, because sometimes you don't want to have all these custom fields. I've gone into accounts and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of custom fields. But yeah, let's kind of talk through these. So where custom fields are located, they're right here on the left-hand side. And you'll see like when you first start with Follow Up Boss, we put just a couple like important ones in there that may or may not be important to you, but we stick a couple in there for you just as a place for you to start, but then you can add more. So let's look at a lead. Okay, I wasn't sure if any of these were filled out. So
Oh
let's
yeah, there probably aren't too many, but you're welcome to fill them.
That's okay. Yeah, so we can do that. So let's actually just look to see where these are initially created. So if we go up to admin up here, you'll see an option for custom fields. And that is where you'll have the ability to create them. You can also, you see these 6 little dots, you may be familiar with these. They're all throughout Follow Up Boss. It just means it's a customizable tile. So you can kind of move these around to wherever you want. So if you have one or a couple specific ones that you're like, I want them at the top so I don't have to scroll all the way to the bottom, we can just drag them up to the top as you create them.
And I think one tip for that too, if you're a team or a brokerage or whatnot, keep the ones that you need the most people to use the most easily, maybe towards the top. You know,
Yes.
things like a YLOPO stars link or links out to other systems,
Mhm.
or things that you really want people to fill. Keeping them at the top and kind of top of mind is definitely a good best practice.
100%. Yeah. Because otherwise you're scrolling for days, especially if you have a lot of custom fields. Um, but yeah, so creating a custom field, if you've not yet done that, we're just going to click over here where it says add custom field. And voila, we're going to have some options now. So this is important because if we have a date, and this is something I see a lot of too, so I want to kind of elaborate on this a bit. If you put in here, just going to keep it simple and put birthday. You're now going to have an option to put this as a text format, which is where you'll type something out, a date, which is going to be your anniversaries, any date, and then there's an option for a reoccurring number. This is going to be obviously a number field or a drop down. I love drop down when it's maybe you have a yes or no, or Another example would be you are working, you want to be able to track your lenders, but you don't have a paid seat for them. So you don't want to pay for them to be on the account, but you just want to be able to track, hey, you know what? Who am I using? Maybe you have a top 2 or 3 lenders that you always use, and then you can have an option for client has their own, something like
Yep.
that. You can create drop downs and it alleviates any spelling errors. So that's always a really, really important thing. When you're
Yes,
using,
if you have 90 bad phone number tags, then you
yeah,
know what we're talking about. Use drop downs.
yeah,
They're great. Well,
yeah.
I want to second that as well. Really good for ISA stuff as well. If you're tracking ISAs, who set the appointment, maybe even the date of the appointment. Just so much you can do with custom fields. Like Janelle said, it's just anything you want to add to Follow Boss that's not natively there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple cool things that I just came up this week, and I want to share those too. But for birthday, obviously, we'd go ahead and we'd use a date format. But why this is important is because we're not going to go into automations today, but when you're automating things in the system, like it's their birthday, I want them to automatically get an email, or it's the closing date and I want them to automatically, get an email or whatever it is. If it's a date format, that can work in an automation as long as it's a date format. So if you have it
Yep.
as a text, it's not going to work. So that's really important to note.
And I want to lean into the date for a minute, and I'm going to go through some of the formatting stuff too, because I'm really big on this as well. Like the date will be in your calendar. All of these can be columns. Deal custom fields are a current exception, but regular custom fields can all be columns in Follow Up Boss. So, like when you're making a smart list, you can say, "Show me their lender status, what ISA set the appointment, what's their birthday, like do they have a birthday or do I need to get it?" Um, but back to those, I want to go through the formatting again really quick. I love what you covered, but I just want to like hammer this home. Number
Totally.
one, you can't. Number one, you can't change it after the fact. So that's really important.
That
You
is
got
it.
to get it right the first time. It's pretty hard to translate it. If you ever really need to, you can technically export them and re-import them into the right format, but none of
No
us
math
want to have to do that.
reassignment. No math
You don't
reassignment.
want to. You don't want to be that guy. Trust me. But text is great, but it's open text. It's loosely speaking, you can kind of search it in that column heading that's like contains, but it's not as like keyword searchable as you might think. So it really is more of a free text. The date, like Janelle said, is really tied to a physical date, but you can do all kinds of cool stuff. 3 days before this date, 5 days after this date, 30 days before this date. It's also physically in your calendar. Numbers are only like, well, I guess they're only positive integers. I never tried to do a negative one, but they're not decimals, which I learned recently. I want to be clear. They numbers format does not take decimals because people want to try to use it for commission to get like the pennies right,
Yes.
but they don't take decimals. But you can search a range. You can say, show me everybody between 5 and 80, whereas you can't do that with the other formats. And then of course, drop down to your point is just
Like
a
this.
range. There's no spelling errors. There's no people can't select two at the same time or type something weird, keeping their options narrow.
Yeah. And one that came up this week that I thought was kind of cool, in a conversation, go back here to custom fields, is they have a lot of clients who come in through Messenger. And right now, that's not something that we have an integration with. So what we saw was they added a custom field for Messenger, whether it be social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. It was a text field. And what they were able to do was to take the URL from that
That's
message
cool.
on Messenger and linked it into the client's dashboard here. And it's an automatic hyperlink. So when you're on the
That's
go,
really smart.
I know. I was like, oh, that was Elena, by the way. I had to shout you out there because I thought that
That's
was so
awesome.
cool. Like, that's
That's a
awesome. Yeah.
that's a great ad. I never even
I
thought about that. That's
was.
brilliant.
Yeah. So customizable, just things that you can customize in here that make your life
Yeah.
easier.
Well, and speaking of popping up the URLs, like that's really handy. We've used that a couple times in a couple different ways with people. But yeah, having different you can use URLs here. And the other thing I just realized I forgot to mention, the other huge upside of custom fields, They are also all merge codes. So if
Yeah.
you've got things like, here's the closing date, here's this, here's that, you can actually send them in an email template,
Yep.
either automatically or manually, to say, hey, congratulations on going under contract. Your closing date is closing date. Your appraisal date is appraisal date. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. So what we're looking at then is creating an email template, coming in and just plugging in these merge fields. If you've not seen these, there's a lot of them. But to Lee's point here is that congrats on your closing on, you would probably never say this, but what we would do is then
So it's
scroll
all good.
bottom, and here is all your custom fields. So everything that you create is now has the ability to be linked automatically. So you never want to touch those merge fields. Those merge fields are automatically going to populate based on that client's dashboard and what you have filled in there. So this right here is powerful, and it's
Yeah.
it's going to save you so much time.
I'm a really big fan of these. I was so glad when I think you came up with this topic, and I was like, yeah, that's a good one. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I think people underutilize these. I think there's so many features that sometimes, until we really drill down and focus on one, people are like, oh, great. I get
yeah,
it.
$100.
Very useful. All right, cool. I'll
Another
let you keep going. I derailed you a little bit.
no, not at all. This kind of it all kind of ties in together. So talking about merge fields, again, utilizing this in an automation. So this, what we would do is in our automations, if we were to say, when a client changes, or not a client changes, but when my TC changes the stage into closed, I want something, this is something I want to actually show you what it looks like. So if we were to say, all right, change the stage, maybe the deal stage, we'll just go with deal stage. Sorry, y'all. What am I doing here? I ordered
It's all
new glasses
good.
and they're going to be
It's an
blue.
account with a bunch of garbage
Deal
data
stage.
in it too. So
Deal stage. All right. So we say when the TC closes, drags that deal over into a closed stage, I want to add an action to add a note. And I want that note to then appear in the dashboard because I want that to just be a record that's right there. You can pin those notes, you can star them, all
right,
of those things. But
you can
let
search them even.
yeah, so let me actually show you a finished product here that I thought was really cool here. Check that out. So this automatically would be that automation. It's going to have the agent's name, the client's name, and these are all custom fields that were built into that particular plan. And now that's going to live in that client's dashboard because that's part of the automation. And you could add conditions and things like that. That's more automation talk for another day. But yeah, I thought that was really another neat way to use merge fields and custom fields together.
I love that. And of note, what's cool about that too is they had set it to notify a group of people, or a team technically.
Management.
Um,
Yep.
but it's cool because that's what a great internal way. And the agent's going to get, well, will the agent get notified if it's a note on a contact they're assigned to, even if they're not tagged in the note? I don't know.
No, probably not if they're not part of that, but it's gonna
If
live
it's
in,
not checked.
yeah, it'll
Right.
live there. So it's just one of those things where if you have a note, what I mean by this is that particular note, we can star that note. And now
Yeah.
that note will live up at the top, so it's just easily accessible.
That's so good. I
Yeah.
love that so much.
All right. What
All
other
right.
could
Let's
we?
dig into oh, I mentioned this, but can you just show at least how to add them into a column? Like if you wanted to make a smart list of
Sure.
upcoming closing dates in the next 3 days, that type of deal. We mentioned it, but we didn't show how to do it.
100%. All right. So we want to always start at all people. And that's weird. Our numbers don't match. Okay. I'm going to test account. So I'm just going to roll with it here. Um,
Yeah.
our custom fields, we're going to scroll down to filter for those all the way down. Here we go. All right. So if we have a close date, here we go. Close date is in the next 3 days.
Of course, there won't be any, but
Yep. Anyone that does, though, would now live in there. So any of these custom fields at all, you can create smart lists for any of those. A popular one, I'm going to throw this one out there, is birthdays. I have a lot of teams who like to handwrite birthday cards. So this is a way that we could, as long as you have the birthday, that your agents are putting birthdays in the system for that client, if we were to go ahead and just say birthday, or kid's birthday, whatever we want to do, birthday is in the next. And usually what I see is this is a bi-monthly thing or a monthly thing. So like set that
Right.
calendar date and make that happen every month, because this is a dynamic list. So in the next, if we were to say 30 days, just to keep it simple, then what'll happen is anyone who has a birthday in the next 30 days, we can now come through here and handwrite those birthday cards to make this a little bit more personal. This, of course, this doesn't have anything to do with the automation that we already have set up. If you turn it on, where we automatically would email them if it's their
Right.
birthday, this is more just show me anyone who has a birthday. Nothing's actually happening when we do this.
Right. But I think that's an important, I'm glad you made that distinction because there's a couple things about that. Number one, if you're going to do a handwritten card, number one, you need some lead time. There's some postal time. There's a couple of things involved in that. And you mentioned this, Janelle, but I want to lean into it a little bit more too. Like the idea of batching these, of like, hey, I've got all the ones for the next 30 days. If I check this every 30 days for the next 30 days and write 5 or 6 cards, I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Sure.
So I like that idea. I think too many people are like of this mindset of like, oh, I got to check it every day and then I got to write a card. But
Oh,
batching it is really powerful.
for sure. Also, we'd want to save this list. If this is a list that you want to be able to see monthly, you have that on your calendar. This is just something you have added to your monthly to-dos. You'll click save list, give it a name. Who do you want to have access to this? Is this just something your admins need to have access to? Is this something that everyone has access to? We'll save that. But also, this is exportable. We could export this. And if you wanted to do mailing labels or something like that, that's something that we could also do as well.
Right. Or if you
Right.
send a gift instead of a card, if you were doing that sort of thing, you can pull the list and send it to the company or to the person that does it.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot you can do with custom fields.
Yeah, I'm really into that. And one thing I want to mention that's kind of a more advanced use, but well, it's kind of a caveat and then an advanced use. Um, one, I don't know that it's a downside, but one thing to know about custom fields is you cannot update them in bulk.
Yeah.
So you can't say like, hey, if 50 people have this tag, give them this custom field. Although that said, it's not that hard to do that at that level. But I see you had a note mentioning that you can use a platform like Zapier or something like that
Yeah.
to do that. In fact, I just recently helped somebody set up something where it's really simple, but when they add a certain tag, it fills a couple of different custom fields just to keep it simple and easy and like,
Yeah.
hey, I need you to do one thing, but we can make it do a few things.
Yes, and that's so this is a little bit more high level, but some teams want to be able to automatically have things populate when that lead pulls in. And that can happen via a zap. So that would automatically maybe fill something out over here, because that's just not something that's native to follow up on. So
Right.
um, if you're familiar with Zap, there's a heck of a lot you can do with Zap. It's something that I personally am trying to learn a lot more about myself. But yeah, so those are more high level, neat things that you can do to really customize your FUB account a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think something else in your note, if you want to show it and kind of cover it a little bit, is the read only and hide if empty buttons.
So what I mean by that, read only and hide if empty. Let me go back here. We have a lot of these fields and a lot of them are empty. So it's just kind of cluttering the view, right? So what we could do is we can come back into custom fields and you can make it hide if empty. So if you have not filled out that field, we won't even see it. We'd actually have to click the drop down to open that up to be able to see more. Um, so yeah, that's something you want to do. Read only means you can't have anyone change it. You, as an admin or the account owner, would have the ability to modify that, but an agent would not. It's a read-only place for them
Yeah. And for clarity, they can fill it once when it's blank.
Yes,
So they
that's
can change it. They can fill it initially. They can't change it. So that's a good feature for, I mentioned the ISA thing earlier. It's good for that. If you want to lock down who set this appointment, nobody can change it.
mhm.
What was your other example was great for that too. I just forgot what it was for locking it down. Like a team owned lead or something to that effect, like a company lead versus a sphere type thing. Because again, actually, I want to go a little deeper on this than I planned. The things like a tag can be removed if you put it in the background, like those things can be edited. If you put it in a read only custom field, they cannot remove this is the company owned lead versus a sphere or versus another type of system. So,
Yeah.
and I want to mention too on the hide if empty. It's funny. I used to really not like the hide if empty because I thought, well, I want to see if it's empty. Like it
Sure.
being empty is a notable thing. Like if their birthday is empty, like maybe I want to see that it's empty so I can fill it out. But I think as people have really gotten to use more and more of these, um, I'm a fan of it. But also, not recently, but now there's a button at the bottom in the contact record that says show all fields. So it's a little easier to still get to them. It
Yeah.
used to be like you just didn't see them and it could. So depending on what it is, like I always use the Ylopo stars link as an example because like if they don't have a stars link, maybe you want to know that. Maybe you want to add them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, to your point, if you have a bunch, then it's just going to get junky if they're sitting there empty.
Yeah. But this is that show all field. So we know there's more below it. But yeah, to your point, I get what you're saying. If you don't see it, it's like, well, I didn't even know I could put it in there. So maybe
Yeah,
move important ones to the top. Um,
right. That's my point is like be strategic about it. Think about what you want and what you potentially want people to go, oh, that's empty. I'm going to fill it versus like
yeah.
keep it off my radar.
Yeah. And I want to show you something else too. I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is another option with custom fields. Okay, sorry, I was getting something ready on the screen before I dragged it
Yeah,
over.
that's great.
So we actually do this in our FUB accounts, and it's great for bigger teams too, but we can break these sections up. So what I mean by that is this. So
Yes.
milestone. That's now showing you all of the milestone, all the dates, so the birthdays. A lot of people will choose to have their spouse's birthday, the kid's birthday, because they want to make it personal for them specifically rather than just because when you do create your FUB account initially, we do have a birthday in there. That birthday is going to match with the account owner, that primary person. If you wanted to add a spouse, you do need to add that as a custom field. So you could kind of chunk these up like this particular account we're looking at, this is the ISA info, and that's where they know. So when you have it sectioned like that, it just makes it easier to be able to go where you need to go, right? Everything's kind of broken up. So
Yep.
that's another really nice little hack too to know about.
Absolutely. I need to spend some time in this demo account and get some of this cool stuff. It's just all
Yeah,
dummy data we haven't touched in years. So
no, for sure. Um, on the go mobile station, right? So you're on the go. These are all accessible from your phone. And like this link right here, I just plugged Google right here. But what would happen is if we click on it, it's going to bring us to that's not supposed to happen.
oh
It's
yeah,
supposed
what's up with that?
to be google.com. I don't know why that just happened. Um, yeah.
Oh,
So
that's funny, but look, it's showing a different URL when you mouse over at the left. So I don't know what's happening there.
yeah, I don't know.
Oh, you know what? You need a www
I
or an
have
HTTPS. It's because look at the URL. It's reading it. It's trying to. It's adding. Oh, you have the www.
I have it. I don't know why. It it will work, I promise.
No, it works. We use it all the time too.
Yeah.
And to your point, there's two ways to do this. Here's a good tip for people if you're not familiar with this. You can do what you did, which is make a custom field and then enter unique data into the contact record. Yeah, there you go.
Enter this. I
That'll
just
work.
pulled up our help doc.
I
So
think
here
it's the HT. I think it's the HTTPS. It was
that
trying to
might be.
add it to the end of the domain.
Yeah. So literally take the whole link. Like don't put it in yourself then is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
Well, you don't need to type a URL anyway. If it's going to be
No.
Facebook/Messenger/779-425, like just paste it in
Yeah. But
or
that's
figure
it,
out Zapier to paste it in.
because it took them exactly to that message and they could just go from there. So that was really cool.
One tip, there are better ways to do this, but one tip that we used to use, it may be useful for a few people. You can do it that way, but you can also make it a drop down type and make your drop downs URLs. Those are also clickable. So if it's the same URL
Yeah.
for every contact, like fill out this listing form or fill out this appointment form, you can do it that way where it's in the data drop down in the setup.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a unique link to each contact like this, where it's a messenger link, you would want to do it this way. So
Yeah.
again,
That's,
so much you can do with this. You just have to figure out kind of what you want to do and back into, you can probably do it here.
you
The
probably,
referral fee is great. Tracking a referral agent, like this, there's
yeah.
just like 1,000 things you can do with these.
There's so much. Yeah, when we first talked about the topic or you had sent it over, I was like, okay, custom fields. But the more my brain started going, I was like, there's really so much that you can do with this.
There
Um,
really is a lot. I recently, similar like we talked with the ISA thing, I recently set it up with a lender where the lender had their own stages because the
mm,
lender doesn't want to, he's a real lender and Follow Boss, but he's not going to change the agent's stage.
or
So we set up a secondary set of stages for him that's like needs pre-approval, needs credit repair, approved, waiting on the contract. Just so again, it really can be a kind of a secondary set of data you can use for anything, reverse prospecting, pertinent information, important links.
yeah.
That number of homes shown, it's funny, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of tracking that necessarily, just because I mean, we can get appointments. I call that a win. But if you're looking to try to track appointments, that's an excellent way to do it. How many homes have I showed to this client? Then again, as long as you do it as a number field or a drop down, you can sort and say, hey, on average, it takes 7 showings for someone in this price range or from this lead source to go under contract. So it's pretty crazy stuff.
Number of homes shown. Yep. Here
And I
we
think
go.
we did 2 to show the difference.
Here,
So
number.
one's a number, one's a drop down.
Yeah. So is greater than or is less than,
Right.
5, right? Whatever you want to do. And then, well, that didn't. Maybe
What?
is it
Yeah.
greater?
Well, and then you can still sort by agent or lead source or deal stage or whatever you want.
There's so much you can do with those.
It's pretty
Cool.
great. I'm trying to think, and if anybody has any questions, obviously drop those in the chat or the Q&A. But also, if you have ideas or if you're doing something cool, let us know. If you're happy to share it, we're happy to share it.
Yeah, it's neat to see how different teams use them.
It really is. I love that grouping thing too. I think that's smart. The more we all build more of these, having those names in there of just these are for ISAs, these are for agents, this is
Yep.
for a lender, just to
So
keep it
cohesive.
somewhat clean.
Absolutely.
And I think people know, but it's worthy of mentioning too. You can move around the things on the right and the left. You can move them around. I don't know that you would really move anything above, move custom fields any higher than it is.
Yeah.
But if for some reason, like you don't use background or you don't use relationships or something, you can collapse them or move them down.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
is a little easier to view
I'm gonna use that as a
all those
plus.
things.
Background is an amazing place to put your relationship building information. I know this is not custom fields related, but it's so like underutilized. I mean, once you start communicating in here, that will start to get so like you're like scrolling and scrolling. And yes, you can put stars and yes, you can kind of sift here. But when you have your background information in here, it's just so helpful. It's what really sets you apart relationship wise and you're listening and that shows because we all can't remember everything. So
Yeah,
super.
I'm all about that because that also works obviously for an inbound call. So if you get an inbound call, obviously, especially on desktop, you're going to be right here in the client record. You can pick right up. Oh, right. Last time we talked, your kid was going to college and, how are they doing? How's the University of Wisconsin? Like whatever.
Exactly. So
It's
good.
funny. We do all this stuff. And then I think sometimes we forget that we've just got an amazing amount of information here to just call people and just read our own notes back to them and have a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this whole section on the left is just so good. It's such good stuff. Now, we can't search for background information, but still, these are all searchable. All your custom fields are
Yeah.
searchable. All your information here. I don't want to go too much on this, but like a lot of people will say like tags and custom fields, and they're not the same thing. But something that I do like to kind of add is if we have a tag on here and it's something that you really, now let me just give you an example. If I was to just have this tag on here and we delete, of course, that's going to start an automation.
Right. Sorry.
That's okay. I should have asked. If this gets removed, there's no record that it was actually removed. Like you as the account owner can't see that. So I might coach someone to say, you know what, if that's a really important feature that you want to make sure, not feature, but what a label,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, use tags because the tagging is amazing, but it's nice to also maybe create a custom field where it's on lockdown almost. So that's
Yep.
going back to our read only. So it's like an extra barrier to make sure that you still have that on there because that does come up sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And because even then, you to your point, you could police like if it doesn't have the tag, then you could be like, wait, why doesn't this have
There
the
to go.
tag? Somebody did
Exactly.
something fishy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that historical. Another thing, and I don't want to get too advanced with this, but I know when we help people do big migrations, we use lots of custom fields because we want to pull in all this data, like what was the stage in the old CRM or the old system? What was did they opt into this? Did they opt out of that? Oh, that brings me to the one point I wanted to remember that I did not put on our agenda, which is that you can bulk, you can delete custom fields ultimately said and done. So if you're doing something like a migration or something where you temporarily like, I don't know, Christmas card list 2024, and you don't want to keep that historically, you can also delete them globally. Obviously, you want to be careful with that. But again, the idea is if you're migrating or doing something fancy, playing with Zapier, and you want to do a bunch of stuff, that's great. They're pretty easy to clean up. If you're like, okay, we no longer need who was the assigned agent in Boomtown 2 years ago, like now we can delete it. So they're easy to clean. Another cool thing about drop downs is you can actually edit the order and the names of the drop downs after they exist. So if somebody gets married and their last name is different in your ISA team, you can change their name and it won't break everything.
Mhm.
If you add a new one, you can just add them. So I mentioned that you can't change these after you've created them. You can't change the high level global field itself.
Yeah.
In drop downs, you can edit the types. Let's say you want to call it pre-approved now instead of approved. You can just edit it.
Yeah.
I did want to mention that just because I said they're kind of locked down, but
No, that's a good point. And you can always add more, right? Add that option,
yep,
add extras, you can delete. But we can't change the type. So once that's in, it's in. And this is something I see a lot where maybe when you did an import, you mapped out that birthday as a text field
right,
or something like that. So what we'd want to do is create a new one. There has to be some type of differentiation with it, like a period or a semicolon or something, because it
right.
can't have the same one twice. But then create that one as the number, right? So we would do birthday and then maybe a semicolon and then add that as the date. And then what you would have to do is manually go through each one from the other list and then change that date. So a little bit of
Yeah,
at that point, but
yeah. That does get tricky, but that is doable. And yeah, what I typically do is just name the old one like bad or something. Like let's get the old one off
okay.
our radar.
That's a good.
Leave the leave the new one how we want it because it happens to me all the time. I go in and change it. It's like, oh, that exists. Oh, right.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, no, that makes good sense. And
Uh,
I just thought of one more thing that I already forgot. Oh, you was the same as what you said. When you're doing an import, you can create is a little advanced, but we'll mention it. When you're doing an import, you can create a custom field and you can select the type,
mhm.
but it works in a different way. So make sure, to Janelle's point, that you pick the right type at that point. One last nerd pro tip: if you've got this problem, if you've got a birthday with 1,000 people in it and it's text, 9 times out of 10, you can export that custom field. Speaking of the columns, if you put columns in a smart list and you hit export, it'll export just those columns. So all you need to do is export, hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this, the email address, and or if the user ID comes out, and the custom field. Then you can change the formatting in a spreadsheet. This happens to me all the time. I get dates in a decimal. It's like 3.222, and it really is 3/12/24.
Mhm.
So you can reformat it in your CSV and then re-upload it to fill that custom field. Sorry, I'm getting a little crazy.
Yes, that is doable. That is
Don't
doable.
reach out to support about that. Reach out to me. I'll help you do that.
Lee will help you.
I will personally help you do that. So, well, Janelle, this is great. There's a lot of stuff to cover at a high level. Like, how would you take us out? Like, if people aren't using these much, or if they using them some but want to go deeper, like, what encouraging words would you have for people?
Well, if you're an account owner, we can actually just start a quick little chat about this in the Facebook group just to see what cool custom fields other people are using, just to give you some ideas. But if you're not an account owner, you're an admin or you're an agent and you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, heck, that would actually make my life a lot easier and be really helpful for organization. That's something you'd want to talk to your account owner about, so that they can implement this. But just creating them and making sure that you're proactively adding stuff to that, because if you're not, then none of this is going to work. So that's the important part of this, making sure that you're adding to these fields and just making it part of your daily workflow.
It's awesome. That's great advice.
Cool.
All right. Well, appreciate you. We got through all the things. That was a great job. And
It was
we'll
good
do it
seeing.
again soon. Yeah, good to see you. And seriously, if you guys have questions specifically, you can drop them in the Facebook live stream here. And Janelle and I will both keep an eye on those and be happy to answer them. So
Perfect. All right.
cool. Great to see you. Take care.
Bye.